If you're looking to create, grow, and sustain your wealth, download and subscribe to the Pain Points of Wealth podcast at BeBullish.com with Bob, Ryan, and Chris Payne. It's your podcast for market insights, money tips, and real talk on the economy. Download and subscribe at BeBullish.com. The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Breaking news.
And tonight on the Rita Cosby Show, the final New York City mayoral debate has just wrapped up. And boy, it was one for the record books. The question is, will it change the dial? Where is the race going? Because Zohran Mamdani clearly has the edge. But I do think tonight, my personal opinion, I think Andrew Cuomo did cut into Zohran's lead. I think Cuomo certainly had a couple lines that got Mamdani off his game a little bit. He kind of put him in a box, or at least exposed him in many ways as an empty suit with some very dangerous ideas. The question is, does it change the race? Who won? Who lost, you guys? What do you think? You've been hearing from us tonight on our excellent analysis post this debate, because, of course, the stakes could not be higher. There are very different visions for New York City. And so many people fear, as I do, if Zohran Mamdani wins in New York, it will spread like a cancer, socialism, democratic socialism across America. So who won, who lost, and where does the race go from here? 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. Tonight, I want to hear from you. I want to hear from you as to who can maybe change the direction in this race, the trajectory in this race. If you look at it, clearly Zohran Mamdani has had a lead for quite some time, a double-digit lead. But I don't think it was Zohran Mamdani's best performance. I actually thought the first debate he did better, even though I thought he was selling New York and America a bunch of hogwash. But tonight, I think he looked tired towards the end of the debate. He couldn't figure out how to get away with his canned lines, because he kept trying to go to the same canned ones that he's rehearsed over and over again. And I think he was revealed in many ways as somebody who truly is an empty suit. He wasn't present for 80% of the time, as we were talking about when he was in the New York Assembly. He's only 34 years old. He just turned it a few days ago. Unremarkable man with some very dangerous policies. So the question is, can the race change? Because you don't want New York City. I certainly don't. I don't want it to go down into the abyss. And that, I believe, will happen if Zohran Mamdani becomes mayor. And that's why everybody around the country has been watching this race and the debate. The final chance where you will see the three candidates next to each other, side by side on the debate stage, was just a few moments ago. And early voting starts on Saturday. So everybody, get out and vote like your city and your country depends on it. Because guess what? This time, it really does. Here is Zohran Mamdani. I want to play this clip because, boy, he was trying to spew a whole bunch of hogwash. He was trying to make it sound like I'm a mayor for everybody. Let's not forget, this is the guy who on the anniversary of October 7th, he said Israel is committing genocide. He also recently ran in the Gaza 5K, which was raising money for UNRWA, which held people hostage after October 7th. He frequently used the word globalize the Intifada. He started the chapter of Students for Justice in Palestine, which has been doing a lot of these pro-Hamas protests across America. And yet tonight he looked into the camera and told a doozy. Listen to this.
I think there is room for disagreement on many positions and many policies, but I also want to correct the record. I have never, not once, spoken in support of global jihad. That is not something that I have said, and that continues to be ascribed to me, and frankly, I think much of it has to do with the fact that I am the first Muslim candidate to be on the precipice of winning this election. Now, all the same, Curtis, I do still want to be the mayor. that will keep your sons safe, that will keep every single New Yorker safe. And it is my job to not only deliver on that commitment, but also to ensure that New Yorkers feel it every single day that they live in this city.
And here is Governor Andrew Cuomo, because he was going back and forth with Mamdani. Here is what Cuomo had to say.
Not everything is a TikTok video. You're the savior of the Jewish people. You won't denounce, globalize the Intifada, which means kill Jews. There's unprecedented fear in New York. It was not several rabbis, Errol. It was 650 rabbis who signed the letter, not several.
And by the way, the moderators, they kept interrupting. Finally, they'd kind of go back and forth. They're like, whoa, 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 let's move on. I mean, it was ridiculous. They should have let them go at it, because that's when Zohran Mamdani can't go to his canned little lines all the time. He kept trying to go to his canned little answers on globalize the Intifada and all these other things. And you need to let it breathe. And they did not let it breathe. And I think that was a tremendous disservice to New York. And here is Zohran Mamdani talking about crime, because he went back to that whole crazy thing about saying, I'm going to send social workers to calls that an operator deems as not violent. Well, often routine traffic stops turn out to be the most violent, or domestic abuse calls turn out to be the most violent. But in Zohran Mamdani's world, repeat offenders are going to roam wild, and an operator is going to decide whether they send a police officer or a social worker to what calls could be extremely, extremely dangerous. Listen to Mamdani going back to this whole thing, which is completely dangerous for social workers, for cops, and also for New York.
Mr. Mamdani.
You know, when I hear from New Yorkers of where they feel least safe, they will often tell me the subway system. And when they explain those moments to me, what they are often explaining is a mental health crisis in our city and a crisis of homelessness that has only continued to grow. And that is why at the heart of our public safety agenda is a groundbreaking proposal to not only reduce crime, but address these very moments of unease for New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs by creating a Department of Community Safety that will be focused on the mental health crisis, focused on homelessness, and will ensure that police officers can focus on serious crimes. Because in 2020, the response time for those officers was less than 11 minutes. Today, it's closer to 16 minutes. And that's because every year they are now responding to 200,000 mental health calls, when those are calls that could by and large be taken by experts trained on responding to that very crisis.
So you're going to send somebody who's a social worker out to a call that could turn incredibly violent. That is the most ridiculous, naive, stupid thing that I've ever heard from somebody over the age of 5. So here is Governor Andrew Cuomo answering a bit about what he would do, and as opposed to defund the police, which is essentially Zohran Mamdani's plan. He said it over and over again, even though he denies that one too, but it's in writing. So I guess we just all can't read. But here is Andrew Cuomo saying that he will hire actually 5,000 new cops.
The answer is always a new government agency. It's manage the system, manage the public safety system. We know how to do this. Mayor David Dinkins did it when we had a real crime problem. Hire more police officers. Of course, you have to deal with the mentally ill. Of course, that requires mental health specialists with police, because the situation can be dangerous. But hire the 5,000 more cops, because they're all quitting, because they're getting worked too hard. You're going to have to raise the starting salary, because nobody wants to be a cop today, the way they're treated. Put 1,500 in the subways. Forget this Zohran idea of not prosecuting misdemeanors. Prosecute misdemeanors. Those are quality of life crimes. And that's very important. Yes, the subways are scary, but it's scary in their neighborhood too. Those quality of life crimes also have to be addressed.
And here was Curtis Sliwa. I thought Curtis was very good at the beginning of the debate, especially. But here is Curtis talking about both of them.
When it's misdemeanors or felonies, no cash bail releases him back into the streets. And both of you are for no cash bail.
Which was a powerful moment. So who won, who lost, And does it change the race? That's the big question, guys, tonight. Again, the polls are showing clearly Mamdani had a very, very big lead going into tonight's debate, barring an October surprise or an early November surprise. He will be the next mayor unless tonight changed the dial. And I think it helped Cuomo. I think it may have hurt Mamdani. The question is, did it change enough? 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Robert in Brooklyn on line 2. Robert, what do you think?
Yeah, thanks, Rita, for taking my call. Well, as you pointed out, Cuomo mentioned about the 5,000 police officers that he would hire. And Mamdani, as we know, in 2020, said all those horrific tweets, horrific stuff about the police, including defunding the police. And now Cuomo says Mamdani now wants to freeze the police. But if he said, Cuomo pointed out, according to the Democratic Socialists, their policy, they believe in defunding the police, and he's a member of it. He said he contributes 3% to of his salary, of his income, to the Democratic Socialists of America. So I don't trust Mamdani with the police. In 2020, he had the most horrific, hateful, disrespectful tweets of the police. He emphatically talked about defunding the police. Now he's only talking about freezing the police. But the Democrat Socialists, they want to defund the police. Now,
by the way, Robert, I also thought that was a powerful moment when Cuomo talked about, you hit it on the head, that I didn't know that until tonight, that he was giving X amount of his salary to the Democratic Socialists. He was pledging, cooperation. He was doing regular meetings. I knew that. But I use the expression, it almost feels like a cult. And their policies, beyond even what you said, the defund the police, it's decarceration. In other words, open up the jails. And I didn't hear anything tonight from Mamdani that disputes it. And when Cuomo came at him, I actually thought that was one of the most powerful moments in the debate. When Cuomo came at Mamdani over the Democratic Socialists and talked about X amount of your salary and some of these really dangerous policies, Mamdani didn't dispute it. He let it go by. He did not dispute it. He did not disagree with it. In other words, he's agreeing. How scary is that, Robert?
It's very scary. I just want to remind everyone, maybe that's a little bit too harsh on Kurt Sliwa, but the bottom line is that the only very slim chance of beating Mamdani in the election is for Cuomo to win. I have to beg people, even if you like Sliwa, Cuomo has the only chance, realistically, the slim chance. The issue of safety is paramount. I mean, the idea that we could be able to walk safely in our streets, in our neighborhoods, to go to school, to go to work, to use the subways, it's imperative that we have a safe city. Now, Mamdani, his tweets from 2020 are horrific. This guy has no experience, successful experience running anything in the business world, in the government world. To hand him the keys to the New York City with all the most extreme stuff he said. I know Cuomo has his issues because the nursing home and the cash bail, but Cuomo, at least he's a tested, he has a lot of experience. He has some reliability, even if he's not going to be, what we want, but he's much, much better than Mamdani. Now, the other thing is, as you pointed out, there was a semantics game that this Mamdani tried to be cute with. Cuomo challenged him about globalizing the Intifada, that he would not denounce it, and he changed the word to global jihad. He said he never supported global jihad, but he wouldn't use the term about denouncing globalizing Intifada. He's trying to play a game. Does Intifada mean the same thing as jihad? But look.
By the way, I noticed that too. He's a wordsmith.
And besides his anti-Semitism, he brought out in Uganda. You're going to talk about BDS on Uganda. He made a very good point. Cuomo brought very, very good point. Cuomo, will you support BDS of Uganda for their horrific policies towards the gay community? But you're going to support BDS against Israel? So this guy is a fraud. This guy, prostitution. In the prior debate, he claimed that he's not he's against prostitution. Meanwhile, there's a tweet where he says that that he's in favor of legalizing sex work. So what is he going to try to play games with sex work and prostitution? This guy is very, very slick. This guy is very, very sadistic. This guy is look at his father, look at his mother. This is a very, very, to take a chance with this guy. The only chance is for Curtis Sliwa to win. This guy he's terrible. He also talked about Sunni Muslims, prostitution.
No, you just said Curtis to win. You think Curtis or Cuomo to win? You said Cuomo earlier. You just said Curtis.
At this point is for Cuomo. The only chance is for Cuomo. It's a slim chance. The fact of the matter is that Cuomo is way ahead of Sliwa.
And by the way, you hit it on the head, because that is exactly the point. If you look at all the polls of late, Cuomo has at least double of Sliwa. And the sad reality is this guy, Mamdani, is way too dangerous to lose this race. It's still going to be tough. But at least it is a much better chance. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. It's the Rita Cosby Show.
And of course, guys, I also read your comments on social media. So definitely send me who you think won the debate, and could there be any change in the direction of this race? That is the key, you guys, because boy, oh boy, if you look at the numbers, Zohran Mamdani had a very comfortable lead. Sal writes, and I love this, Sal, on social media on Twitter, says Mamdani's Fidel Castro smile faded for the most part. Andrew poured it on with pile driver force. I agree. I think Mamdani, I compared it to the Nixon-Kennedy debates where Nixon was sweating like a storm. And tonight, by the way, Mamdani, if you looked at it, it looked like he had like a bucket of sweat coming out of him because he didn't want to denounce DSA. Boy, oh boy. Let's go to Norm real quick in Brooklyn. Go ahead, Norm, your thoughts.
Okay, my thoughts, if it's quick. Okay, I think Andrew Cuomo won. I said presentation, professional appearance.
Do me a favor, Norm. I'm going to let you do your analysis. Just hang with me. I wanted to hear your first thoughts. We're going to go to a break, and then you can tell me why, and also what happens with the race from here. 1-800-848-9222.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Rita Cosby is on. The Rita Cosby Show presents Back the Blue.
And this Back the Blue segment coming from Southampton, New York, where 2 town police officers were treated recently for smoke inhalation after helping an elderly man who sustained minor burns and helped him escape through a window of a burning house in Hampton Bays. Now, the fire chief says that a pair of Southampton officers were first on the scene of a fire that was engulfing a 2-story house. And when the officers arrived, they spotted an elderly man trying to escape the burning structure through a 2-story window. The officers saw the home's occupant climb out the 2nd-story window onto the 1st floor overhang, which was about 10 feet above the ground. And in an effort to get the man down safely, one of the officers went through to enter the home. He located a bedroom. Remember, it's engulfed in flames, grabbed a hold of a mattress, and then ran back outside, placed the mattress atop of an outdoor table, which they pushed up against the building. And indeed, one of the officers was able then to climb up onto the roof and help the elderly gentleman down onto the mattress, all within a few minutes' time. The ex-police chief there in the area saying to me, these cops are real heroes. They did a great job and saved this man from a very horrible situation. Incredible and fast thinking by the great men and women in blue. And as we're talking about the debate, boy, are we concerned about Zohran Mamdani. Kept saying, no, I'm not for defund the police, but I'm going to send social workers and I'm not going to hire any more. He also brought up the fact that he says that he would want to keep Jessica Tisch as the NYPD commissioner, as the New York police commissioner. Hopefully she would never accept an offer, I would hope, from a guy like this. And if you listen to also his comments, even last night, in the debate, rather last week, he talked about how he applauded commissioners in general and people for cracking down on bad cops, essentially, on disciplining police officers. And he said that again just a little bit ago. His comment was that they did a good job disciplining the officers, that Jessica Tisch inherited a department that had some problems in some of the senior leadership positions, and she did a good job of rooting them out. That was what he first came out with when he talked about the qualifications for a New York City police commissioner versus keeping the community safe. That, to me, was a very transparent line from this guy who I believe would destroy New York if he becomes mayor in less than 2 weeks. Is the election day, guys. And first off, here are all three candidates. This is Zohran Mamdani, Andrew Cuomo, and Curtis Sliwa talking about Eric Adams and if they would accept his endorsement. That was one of the areas in tonight's debate. Listen to this.
Would any of you accept Mayor Adams' endorsement? Mr. Mamdani?
No.
Mr. Cuomo?
Yes, I would.
Mr. Sliwa?
Absolutely not. Put that crook in jail where he belongs.
And final, a fun one.
Be careful. Be
What
careful.
And that indeed was Andrew Cuomo, Mamdani, and also Curtis talking. And you heard very different. Curtis said he would put Eric Adams in jail. Cuomo says, yes, he would accept that endorsement. There's a shot of him sitting, it looks like arena side there at a game with Eric Adams tonight. So maybe that endorsement may be coming. Mamdani says no. He would not. And now I do want to go to cut number 3. This is Zohran Mamdani, because one of the big areas tonight was when he was asked about many of his anti-Semitic views. He kept trying to say, no, I'm not, I'm fine. I never said globalize the Intifada. Thank goodness there is social media, because you can look back at exactly what this guy said and even look at some of the videos. There he is. He's going after, he even talked about arresting Netanyahu. Remember just last week in the debate. So there's so many comments from this guy that are downright hateful. And here he is trying to sell New York and America a bunch of hogwash. And he actually starts accusing Cuomo of stoking fears of anti-Semitism, as opposed to saying, yeah, maybe things I said were wrong. He doesn't even go there. He blames Cuomo. Listen to this one.
And there is no doubt that there's two sides on what's going on, and the passions are very high. That doesn't justify anti-Semitic behavior in New York. It doesn't justify having a Jewish population that feels unprotected in New York. It doesn't justify leaders who stoke the flames of hatred against Jewish people, which is what Zohran does, in my opinion.
I'll give him a chance to answer, and then we'll go to Mr. Sliwa.
You know, I've heard from Jewish New Yorkers about their fears about anti-Semitism in this city. And what they deserve is a leader who takes it seriously, who roots it out of these 5 boroughs, not one who weaponizes it as a means by which to score political points on a debate stage.
Mr. Sliwa.
That guy is disgraceful. The fact that he sits there and says, oh, Cuomo's doing it for political reasons and that he's going to be a mayor for all New Yorkers after some of the comments that he's made. He gave the finger to the Columbus statue. He insulted Indians. He has said horrible things that are definitely, in my mind, very anti-Semitic. And he wants us all to believe that it's stoking fears, that he's the best one to represent all New Yorkers. And then if you criticize him, you're racist because he said, I'm the first Muslim running for mayor. And he kept bringing that up Like, in other words, you shouldn't be saying that about a Muslim individual. But he's okay to say globalize the intifada and apartheid and occupation and all these other things and open up the jail cells. That's fine. But don't criticize a Muslim, is his word. It has nothing to do with him being Muslim. It has everything to do with him being dangerous. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go back to Norm on line one. Norm, thank you for your patience.
You're welcome.
You mentioned before the break, just in case our folks missed that, you believe Cuomo won, and tell us why.
Yeah, Cuomo won, and it was. I wrote notes next to it. So for Cuomo, presentation was a professional appearance. I mean, this is big. I mean, with your average and an unknowledgeable voter. Overall content, the way he handled the questions, his experience. I mean, building the Second Avenue subway, the Kosciuszko Bridge to build it. So all this is sort of some of the things that I saw. Now, Curtis Sliwa was second. For me, the conservative, it was agreeable content, but I'm sorry, presentation wasn't there. He, to me, wasn't a mayor. Okay, I mean that's just my appearance, and that's not me speaking. I mean it's me speaking, but it's not. I'm just trying to think of what my clients, what the average New Yorker, would go for. I mean it just seems like Cuomo just seemed like he had it more in the bag. Now, as far as Zohran goes, to me he looked for this debate looked uneasy. He was sweating. There was exposed inexperience there. He was shaking a little bit. He looked like a kid on his high school on a high school debating team.
Why do you think he was sweating?
He wouldn't answer key moderator questions.
Yeah, he wouldn't. Wouldn't. Why do you think he was sweating?
Nope.
Why do you think he was sweating? Because I noticed that it was
because
incredible.
Because it was the first time ever that this guy had anything that this guy actually was tested. This was the first test he ever had. He's had his ass kissed since every media platform I've seen him in, to include when I saw the interview on Fox. He's had his butt kissed. Okay, I mean, forget it. The Love Fest on MSNBC, the women on The View. I mean, they love this guy. They want to stroke his hair. Okay, I'm just saying, this was the first time he was tested.
By Cuomo, not by the moderators, but by Cuomo.
But I think the moderators were better. I mean, the moderators were better.
I'm not sure.
The last time they really sucked.
I'll be honest with you. I'm not sure. I thought they were better in terms of like allowing, because I didn't feel like they were even allowing Curtis on the first debate. So I felt like they were better there. I felt they were more balanced, if you will. But I also thought when they came time to we've got some hard questions for you, I thought, okay, let's see what they're going to ask Mamdani. And, they go after Cuomo, of course, I think on the nursing home and the women. They said to Curtis something, I don't know, it was something about his taxes or guardian angels or something. I was like, that was Cuomo. That was a question Cuomo had. But there was something that they went after, like, why do you think you have the experience for guardian angels or whatever, to run the city? And then I thought, okay, well, what are they going to ask Mamdani? Hopefully they're going to go back and look and read some of the tweets and some of these comments, because he's been dodging and saying, I never said these things. They're his own words. And anybody that literally, I would have taken me 5 minutes to come up with a question for him that would have had him going, where was that? They asked him some basic question that was so unimportant. That was a disservice. That was a missed opportunity.
I see a path for victory for Cuomo. I really do.
What's the path? What's the path, Norm?
The path is, I think, most normal people that are out there, and I define normal as my secular Jewish clients on the Upper West Side. I know who are Trump haters. I see those people to a person going for Andrew Cuomo. And I see most normal people. it's the kids. And I don't know if their passions are going to drive them to the polls. I don't believe it. I don't believe you're going to have scores and scores of them. I think they're talking about it and all that. And I don't see them being driven. Also, I think the minority community, I was listening to you guys at the panel there, and somebody said, I think it was a former governor, Patterson. They said that he needs to go to the black churches, and I agree with that. Andrew Cuomo needs to go to the black churches. Yeah, that's what I think he does. He needs to go to that base that traditionally loved him.
Yeah.
And he always went to the black churches. And I think that I don't think there's much passion in the African American community for Zohran Mamdani. I just don't see it.
So you see a
Don't
path.
see it.
Do you see a path for Curtis after tonight?
Contrary to my friends, I'm now currently on the hit list with my conservative caller friends of your station. I don't think he has a path to victory. I don't think he has a path to victory. You just heard Bill O'Reilly. Bill O'Reilly just said he needs to put on the beret. Go back and put on the beret. I don't think he's got a path to victory. I wish he did. But he doesn't. This city, the scores and scores of people will never vote for somebody with an R. An R is like having I don't know. It's like having a disease for these people. And
by the way, that is the problem, and that's the reality. I mean, Norm, as we're talking, it's nothing against Curtis. It's if you look at the numbers right now, it is clear that. And barring some different surprising poll or something, but every other poll I've seen, clearly Cuomo is ahead. And this guy, the more you see him, I worry that this is the honeymoon. That's what I worry about, Norm, that this is the time where he wants to be nice. And who knows how he's going to be when he's in Gracie Mansion. I think he's going to be a lot worse. And people that have been in politics a long time told me that they are really, really concerned. It's not just rhetoric. It is deeply concerning, where they're trying to figure out, do they need to move? Do they need to do this? They are so concerned of what this guy is going to do to the city that they love. And that really is the bottom line at this point. Norm, thank you. Really important perspectives. Let's go to Andrea in Brooklyn. Go ahead on line 4. Go ahead, Andrea.
Hi. I want to touch on something that was touched on a little too softly early on in the debate, but it really exposed Mamdani as not only a hypocrite, but a Jew hater, not just an Israel hater, but a Jew hater, because they asked him what about people in Uganda that were guilty of war crimes. And this relates to Mamdani saying he's going to arrest Netanyahu, because if you ask him why, he says it has to do with the International Criminal Court. Now, the International Criminal Court is not something that the U.S. aligns with or is a part of, but the International Criminal Court has also put out an arrest warrant for Putin, for the former Sudanese president Omar al-Bashir, and also for an Ugandan warlord named Joseph Kony. Now, they touched on a little bit, not about Joseph Kony, but someone else who's apparently some kind of a criminal in that way. And they asked him, how come he's not going after these other people? He's only going after Netanyahu, which proves that he has a different rule for Jews than he does for others. And this also relates to something we discussed, unfortunately, right before when there was the terrible murder of Charlie Kirk. And so it kind of got overshadowed. But, he's a member, Mamdani is a member of the state legislature right now, representing part of Queens. And it was exposed tonight how he hardly ever showed up. Well, when he does show up, here's what he comes up with: the Not on Our Dime bill, which is singling out Israel as being a country that if this law is passed and signed by the governor, it will mean that any nonprofit organization, it's meant to alter the nonprofit law in New York State. Any nonprofit that donates money to Israel, to any cause that basically he disagrees with, because he defines it, I presume he took it from some kind of international something that the U.S. also does not align with, only against Israel, they have to pay a fine of at least $1 million and up. Now, Liberia discriminates against white people, which I'm not saying that's wrong. That's their culture. China discriminates against the Uyghurs. India has a caste system. Turkey discriminates against the Kurds. Well, in Israel, the enemy has a pay-for-slay program. They use civilians, women, children as human shields. And he is only putting up a law to punish Israel.
And by the way, even, the other debate last week, it wasn't years ago, it was just last week, he came out and in that message, he blatantly said occupation, genocide, apartheid. That's how he describes Israel. He clearly hates the Jewish people. My opinion, he really does. He's blatant anti-Semite, and he's blatantly a terrorist sympathizer, too. Let's not forget the imam that he's been palsing around with, and others that he's been hanging around with. And even by his own admission, just on October 7th, the anniversary of October 7th, just think about it. This was not that long ago. He went out and condemned Israel again. I mean, this guy has no shame, and he wants to be the mayor of New York. If this isn't a wake-up call, guys, you tell everybody you know to get out and vote, because the city does depend on it. This is so serious. 1-800-848-9222. We'll continue your calls after the break.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. This is the Rita Cosby Show.
Wow, this debate was definitely one for the record books. You heard Norm's thoughts and others. What do you guys think? Let's go to Tony in Clifton on line 4. Tony, who won, who lost?
Hi, Rita. I would say that Governor Cuomo won. I think Z-Man was off his game because one thing that he got was a lot of questions about his inconsistency or just not answering questions. And they said, we want to know how you feel on certain things because you never give us an answer. He felt a little intimidated. I don't think he expected that. But what Andrew Cuomo needs to do is really focus on what Bill O'Reilly said. This campaign is about finances. And yes, it's about freebies, but there's a way to lay it out. And Governor Cuomo didn't do that. Like Mamdani said, 1 in 5 people can't take the subway or transportation. None of that was questioned. And that's really a big issue because the money that people were concerned about in the election, and many people, was that all the money from New York City was going to the illegals. That wasn't brought up enough, even though Curtis touched on it.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. By the way, do you think he penetrated enough, Cuomo, in terms of the DSA and the craziness on the crime? I think you could have hit him on the social worker thing again.
That's true. But my point, just for the call, and I don't want to go all over, is that on the finances, if he laid out a better plan on how he could save on taxes, on how he could look at where the issues are for people, we don't even know if half of these people are working or they want to work or they just can't work.
No, by the way, that's a great point. The problem is, and Bill eloquently described this, O'Reilly, is that a lot of young people hear free. And I agree, maybe coming up with an alternative plan that saves people money, but it's realistic. And I think hammering the craziness at the same time is a winning formula.
Thanks for listening to The Rita Cosby Show. You can hear The Rita Cosby Show weeknights at 10 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
If you're looking to create, grow, and sustain your wealth, download and subscribe to the Pain Points of Wealth podcast at BeBullish.com with Bob, Ryan, and Chris Payne. It's your podcast for market insights, money tips, and real talk on the economy. Download and subscribe at BeBullish.com.